everyone, Christina here. Welcome to day 25 of the holiday card series for 2014. Today I'm going to be making a very simple and easy card that is easily replicated or duplicated if you wanted to create 10, 15, or even 25 of this card. I'm starting out with this small background stamp from Hero Arts, and I'm inking it up with Hero Arts black dye ink. Going to be stamping it down onto some white cardstock. This is Neenah Solar white cardstock, and it is cut to 3 inches wide by 4 1/4 tall. And I'm just pressing that paper down onto the stamp. It's just a little bit easier to do it this way versus actually taking the stamp and pressing it onto the paper. I get a more even impression this way. So there is the stamped background stamp. I'm going to be doing some heat embossing on top of it, and I want to make sure that that ink is completely dry. So I'm taking my heat tool and just running that heat over that stamped area to dry any spots that weren't completely dry. The ink does dry rather quickly, at least to the touch, but sometimes there's just enough wetness left behind for it to kind of mess up your embossing. So I wanted to make sure that everything was completely dry. I also prepped the area with my EK Success Powder Tool, and now I'm going to be testing it with some WOW Rich Pale Gold embossing powder. And I'm just testing it to make sure that that embossing powder will come off really cleanly so that when I do stamp my sentiment, that I won't have any areas that have gold embossing powder on it when I haven't stamped there. So I just had one little spot that wasn't quite dry. So I wiped off that excess powder with a dry paintbrush and then used my heat tool to just zap that one more time to make sure that everything was dry and ready for heat embossing. I'm going to prep my area one more time with my EK Success Powder Tool. And then I'm going to go into the stamping portion of this card. The stamp set I'm using today is from Mama Elephant, and it is the Peace on Earth stamp set. I'm going to use the really large Peace on Earth greeting that's at the bottom of the stamp set. And I'll mount that on my stamp press and then ink it up with Versamark ink, making sure that I get all areas of that really large greeting stamp. And then I'll go ahead and stamp this down directly onto the top of that black area. This creates a really fun layering effect, and even though I'm not doing too much besides, just stamping the background and then embossing this greeting on top, because of the design of that starry background where it's kind of distressed and kind of got some edges that are kind of fading off, because I'm using that, it really looks like I've done a lot more work than I have. I also took the star stamps from that stamp set and just stamped some larger stars and some medium stars. And then I'll go ahead and take this over to my scratch paper where I've got that gold embossing powder started. And I'm going to sprinkle on the gold embossing powder over this entire area. And right now it doesn't look very attractive, it looks kind of brownish, but once I heat set this and melt the embossing powder, it's going to look super pretty. So I just tapped off the excess embossing powder, and now I'm using my heat tool to melt that embossing powder. Metallic gold embossing powder melts to a really pretty finish. It's nice and smooth, and it really emphasizes this greeting area. I think it looks really pretty with the stars in the background, and then also the different types of stars and gold right on top. I just think it turned out really nice. So now I'm going to be working on the edges of this piece here. Like you've seen in previous days of the holiday card series, I'm really loving this technique. You just take your edge of your cardstock and kind of rub it along some Versamark ink just to add the ink to the very edges and go around all 4 sides. And then I'll be dipping it into that gold embossing powder once again. And it adds a nice gold edge. And it almost looks like I've matted it on top of some gold paper or something like that, but it gives a nice finished edge. This might be my new favorite way of finishing edges on cards, especially for holiday cards, which tend to have more metallic and glitter and a little more sparkle to them. I think adding some gold or silver edge on your card is super pretty. So I'll just go ahead and melt that embossing powder until it's completely melted. Heat set that. And now I'm going to go on to the card base, and I'm going to be using some red cardstock. This is Schoolhouse Red cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. This is my favorite red cardstock for holiday cards. I really love Schoolhouse Red. Lipstick Red is a little more bright. I really like this more deep red color from Schoolhouse Red. So I'm going to run the edges of the card base into the Versamark ink, just like I did for that previous piece. And I'm pressing it down a little bit more this time. I want a little bit of a thicker edge, and I also want it to be really uneven. I don't want it to be like a perfect straight line. I want there to be some thicker areas and some thinner areas. I want it to look really organic, especially since that black stamping had all that distressed sort of edge to those stars. I think it looks really nice, and it's a great way to bring everything together. So after I applied the gold embossing powder all around the edges, I used my heat tool once again to melt the embossing powder. And the edging actually melts really rather quickly. So if you're doing this on your own, just watch it and don't overheat it too much. So after the card base is completely done, and Manny's back here meowing. Hi, Manny. He says hello. I put some foam adhesive on the back of that white piece. Quite a bit, actually. I don't like to let the center sag. And then press that down onto the card base. And that is the card. Super easy, and it comes together rather quickly. If you do this card on your own, I would suggest doing all the steps in batches. So do all your black stamping all at the same time, and then all of your gold embossing at the same time. That's the very last card for this year. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back tomorrow with an additional bonus video. Thank you so much for watching until the very end of the video, or even the very end of the holiday card series. I really appreciate all of the comments that you guys have been leaving, and I love to hear how you guys are adapting the cards for your own holiday cards this year. On screen right now are all day 25 videos from the previous 5 years of the holiday card series, so feel free to check those out. And Manny back here, if you can hear him meowing, says to visit my blog at kwarnerdesign.com. You can see all of the supplies and a picture of the card and everything you need to know about the card for today. You can hit that subscribe button in the top corner, and thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys tomorrow for a bonus video all about die cutting, and until then, have a wonderful evening and thanks for watching.